All right. Hey, folks, it's Faz here from Faz Lifts. Today is going to be a response video to Alex from AlphaDestiny, who did a video recently called Elevate Your Lifting Mindset. Now, what I'm going to be discussing is how to elevate your dietary mindset. So that's going to be my response and my take on what he said. Firstly, if you have made it over to my channel, thank you very much. Please go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't done so already and you enjoy my content. So let's get on with the video. Now, firstly, Alex's main point was that you have to have a sense of belief in yourself, and then he goes on to detail how to do that and how to actually succeed. So let's just have a look at what he has to say.
You have to brainwash your mind for superior gains. See, it's not about being delusional or setting unrealistic expectations. It's about undoing the negative thinking that's been holding you back for all these years.
That I really liked. So his point there, it's about undoing the negativity that has held you back. And that's really what I want to focus on today, but I want to do it from the angle of dieting. I get a lot of people that come to me with a history of failed dieting. Either they never got to their goal in the first place, or they got to their goal and then they rebounded, and they've been doing that up and down for years and oftentimes decades. And they come to me and they don't really believe. They almost come to me as a last resort. They've tried all the flashy glitz, glam, juice, fast, cleanse, starvation diets, low carb models, and they've rebounded every single time. And their impression of themselves is that they can't do this. So they hear about me, like, hey, this guy gets great results. Let's give him a try. And they pay the money, but deep down, they don't really believe in the process. Because you know why? Because they've looked at themselves in the mirror over the course of the last year, multiple years, perhaps even multiple decades, and they've always seen them revert back to the shape that they don't like. And body image causes some massive issues with people. It can leave a very long-lasting impression. And so I want to discuss today how we can break out of the cycle of poor dietary practices and how you can actually change for good, because that's what I preach. I preach sustainable habits. So I thought it would be a good time to discuss this off the back of Alex's video, because I think he's discussing that from the perspective of physique and strength improvement. I'm discussing it more from the perspective of dietary and fat loss and reaching your body composition goals. Now, there is overlap, of course, but that's my general focus. So moving on. Firstly, this is the big thing. There is a concept in behavioral science called learned helplessness. And this is the idea that you expect an outcome based on your previous experience of doing something. So they do this in a laboratory with, I think it's like rats or whatever. Every time they hear a bell, they get some food. Okay, so the rats know that it's something like that. Anyway, the rats know that whenever the bell sounds, they're going to get some food. So what happens is every time the bell sounds, they get the food. Okay, and after a while, they stop giving the rat the food, but the rat still expects the food. It's a learned helplessness. Something happens and you expect an outcome. So with a lot of people that come to me, in their heads, something happens is they're starting a diet. What they expect to actually happen deep down is they expect some initial weight loss, but they expect them to rebound afterwards. And that is because they've had a history of this occurring before they met me. So a history of diet failures, which usually arise from poor dietary practices, things like juice fast and stuff like that. So some of these guys and girls would have gone through this cycle multiple times over the last sort of couple of decades even. Usually the younger ones have more belief simply because they've not been through this cycle so much. But I've got people who come to me who are 40, 45, 50 years old, who have been up and down in body weight for literally decades. At this point, they'll start a diet fully expecting to lose 10, 20 pounds and then to gain it all back again, because that's just what they believe. That is their view of life. They can't see it any other way. So when I tell them, actually, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to teach you sustainable practices. We're going to drop 10 to 20 pounds and you're going to hold it. They like the idea of that because that's what they've always wanted. But do they really fully believe it? And if you don't fully believe it, you're always going to fail, because you'll find a way of sabotaging yourself. Poor dietary practices and unsustainable diet patterns are so damaging for this reason. You should never get yourself involved in things like that, because every time you fail, you rebound or you fail to reach your goal, it chips away at your resolve. It builds that learned helplessness, which you want to avoid so much. So always, always, always pick sustainable models for dietary practice. This is one of the reasons why competition dieting is so stressful, because by its very definition, you are getting to a body composition which is not sustainable. So you have to employ somewhat unsustainable practices. But you should be able to get to a healthy body fat percentage sustainably and hold that with the right methods. It's just that there are a lot of unscrupulous diet coaches out there who do things in very damaging ways. And every time you expose yourself to one of those diet coaches, you are chipping away at your resolve. You are building that learned helplessness. For God's sake, don't do that. And if you have done it in the past, stop it. Next up, reinforcing poor outcomes. Every time you fail, you reinforce the idea that you can't be lean. So not only are you building that learned helplessness, you are expecting an outcome. You are also, from the other side of things, you are reinforcing the idea that you're never going to be lean. Because you know what? Every time you try it, you fail. And in your mind, that's what dieting is. It is all these poor practices, and all these times you've failed previously, it reinforces the idea that you can't be lean. Okay? Well, something breaks. You have to avoid poor dietary practices. You have to avoid these unscrupulous diet coaches. You have to avoid, as much as possible, measures which are going to lead to you binging and rebounding, because every time you fail, you reinforce the idea in your head that you can't be lean, because you look in the mirror and it's just the same nonsense again. Now, we've had quite a lot recently about the statistics surrounding fat loss and weight loss diets and how well they work. And I want to say the statistics don't lie. However, the statistics are very biased against those who report bad experiences. So, for example, a successful dieter, somebody who's lost 30 to 40 pounds and has kept it off, they are less likely to take part in diet failure studies. They are much more likely to just have gotten on with their life and forgot about that, right? They are less likely to come back and then start to take part in these studies to talk about diet failures. That's just the way it is. It's like if you go out to dinner, if you have a nice dinner at a restaurant, we all know that you're far more likely to leave. Most reviews are far more likely to be negative because you're far more likely to report a particularly negative experience than a particularly positive one. So successful dieters, they do skew the statistics somewhat. I like to believe that the number of successful dieters are far more than the statistics say, because the statistics are particularly poor in this regard. And finally, the solution. The solution to all of this, you have to cultivate a sense of belief. Firstly, and this is similar to what Alex was saying, hire a coach. Have an experienced eye, somebody who can teach you, or at least try to absorb as much information as possible. Learn about your craft. And it's the same with lifting. It's the same with trying to get that 4-plate bench or whatever your goal is. Learn about your craft. Learn about sustainability in this case. It is a lifelong education, and it should be. This is your health. This is something that's important to you. And it's something that, as I've said, you don't want to leave to chance. You don't want to just have a situation where you are failing and then that leads to that's your lot in life. Now, why do I have such a high sense of belief that everyone can succeed? Because of this. On the left, that is me at pretty much the height of my power and strength. It's actually around about the time Alex started his channel. And at that stage in my life, I was very strong, very big, but I was not happy necessarily with my body. I had been on this cycle of being up and down in body weight for many years at this stage. And I wasn't young. I was in my early 30s. You know, I had peak strength in my early 30s. And I was unhappy with my physique. I had gone up and down in body weight. Did I really believe that I could do it? I don't know. If you ask me that question now, I would say probably not, probably not. It's only been the last 10 years or so, or 8 years, however long it's been, where I've found more sustainable ways to actually get lean and stay lean, that I can say now I have a sense of belief that I maintain a reasonable condition similar to that on the right-hand side year round. And I do that relatively effortlessly. It's just the way that I live. It's just the way that I eat. So up until that point, up until I had found the key, I can't say I really believed it was possible for me. What I did do was, as in the previous slide, I hired a coach. I made sure I carried on learning. I considered it a lifelong education. I never gave up. And it's similar with Alex. He never gave up on his quest for a 4-plate bench, and he got it in the end. Same with me. I never gave up because I believed I could do more, and I wanted to do more. I'd failed so many times in the past, and I carried on with this blind enthusiasm, and I did it. And so that's really where I wanted to end the video, to say to you guys that, similar to what Alex has said regarding your elevating your mindset, it's the same with diet. You have to hold on to that belief that you can have the body of your dreams as long as you have a reasonable goal. I'm not saying you should be 8% body fat year round, but a healthy percentage, being 10 to 15% body fat, a genuine 10 to 15% body fat, having abs, with the outline of abs year round, is not an unreasonable goal. It's just a case of finding a way, finding a method. It might not happen the first time, but it will happen eventually. Keep working at it, and it can. And if having abs year round is not on the cards for you, then at least being in better shape, if you're unhappy with your body, at least being in a reasonable shape or better than you were previously is on the cards. I'm not trying to promote unrealistic expectations. All I'm trying to say is, if you are overweight and you're unhappy with where you're at, you can probably be leaner and you can stay there. If you have had bad experiences with diets before and you've just rebounded massively afterwards, understand that you can't give up on it. You have to undo that negative thinking. You have to believe. You can't develop this learned helplessness. You've got to believe in yourself. All right, folks, I'm going to call it there. Hopefully that resonates with you guys. Bit of a different video today, but hopefully you found it useful. And thank you for tuning in. I will see you next time.